partner with the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome our viewers to tune in to the candidate interviews for City Council here in Tampa. At the Chamber, we focus on policy, not politics. And while we do not endorse, we want to make sure that our members in the business community have an opportunity to hear from candidates and where they stand on important business issues. This morning, we're excited to have Stephen Lytle. He's running for City Council District 3 with us. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So we're just under 6 weeks from Election Day. We're here in the final stretch. What's the message that you're trying to deliver to voters before they head to the polls?
You know, for me, my message is we need to move Tampa forward. We have opportunities now with the momentum that we have in this city, both with our economic development as we see our skyline changing, but as well as with our neighborhoods to continue to move Tampa forward in the right direction. And I think by choosing the right leadership that has the leadership and vision that has been proven to move us in that direction, I think we can do so successfully.
Great. Workforce housing. So we're hearing, some call it a crisis. There's certainly a need for more workforce housing in the city of Tampa. What zoning or policy changes do you see as opportunities for us to address this need?
Yeah, this is a great opportunity to talk about this because the city of Tampa, right now, we work with the Tampa Housing Authority, and we have over 5,000 residents sitting on a wait list just to be able to, that need housing. And that 5,000 isn't even indicative of how many truly are in need. And it's important for us as a city council to evaluate our government regulations, including land use or zoning codes, our building codes adopted by the city that will negatively impact the cost of housing and limit the supplies of affordable housing. So I truly believe that it's important to provide housing where there's access to opportunity. And those opportunities provide living wages, access to quality childcare services, access to quality educational opportunities, and where they can find reasonable and affordable city and public transportation. And by doing that, we'll be able to integrate housing into areas where opportunity will be more inclusive.
Great. One could argue that the budget process is one of the biggest responsibilities for City Council.
Yeah.
We're hearing from some state economists and budget leaders that there's potentially going to be a slight dip in the economy in a couple of years, which would fall under, if elected, your tenure as a city councilman. So how would you balance potential dip in the economy with budget prioritization? Where would you see opportunities for potential cuts? Would there be tax increases? How would you balance that?
I think this is an area where I likely shine in comparison to other candidates running for city council. I've had an opportunity to serve on the budget advisory committee, and I've been appointed by Charlie Miranda for the last 4 years. And I was elected by my peers for the last 3 to chair that committee. And what that gives me an opportunity to do is meet with all of our department directors in the city on an annual basis, evaluate their budgeting needs, allocations, and shortfalls, and then determine where we need to be able to spend effectively in our budget by making budget recommendations around strategy to Tampa City Council. There's probably no other candidate who's been more involved with our city budget over the last 4 years than I, and more in-depth understanding of that budget. Now, there are opportunities where we're in a great time of economics right now, but we know that there's going to be a shortfall. And so we need to evaluate areas where we know that there's the biggest need by making decisions that balance the needs of our residents today with how we're going to move Tampa forward in the future. So we can do that by looking at positions where we know there's healthcare. Healthcare and pension costs are some of our 2 biggest costs that we have in the city, mainly our personnel and healthcare costs. And so the city is self-insured. And so most of our city employees live in the new Tampa Palms, Wesley Chapel area, yet we don't have a clinic there that the city employees can go to. We have one in Brandon and we have one near the stadium. By investing in a clinic there, we can drive down our healthcare costs by providing accessibility to care with a minimal investment now that'll save money in the future. Same thing with things like the water project called TAP. We know that that is going to be a project that we need to focus on because it'll save us money in the future and create sustainability for water within our region, especially here in the Tampa area. There's a lot of other things that we need to focus on that aren't being given the right amount of attention. For example, water and wastewater. We have $3 billion in master plans that have been technically approved. We have no way to pay for them right now. And we need to look at our interlocal agreements. We need to audit our internal systems and determine how are we going to pay for these things without overburdening the taxpayer today and tomorrow, because we need to take care of it now or else we're going to be paying more in the future.
You mentioned looking at internal systems. I want to talk about permitting real quick. We've heard some concerns from members and folks in the community that the permitting process has become a bit difficult. How would you, as a city councilman, ensure that we've got a safe permitting process, but also an efficient one for our businesses and residents here in Tampa?
I've heard those same concerns, and I've actually seen a little bit different on that side. As the city's implemented Excella, I've seen a couple of challenges on both sides of that. So I've seen from my experience when we created the first street mural in the city of Tampa, we had to go through the permitting process for that, get the right-of-ways. It's a very intensive process to go through there, especially if you're not very technically sound. I would imagine it would be a pretty hard thing to do. It's made it a little bit easier to streamline it and get things through quicker. But on the same side, there hasn't been the right amount of training for that. I will say on a positive side, that's really helped businesses as well as neighborhood associations and neighbors understand what's going on in the city and in the neighborhood, because now they have access online to be able to go and say, what is this project that's going on down the street? Or what is this that's going to be happening where I just saw a sign for? So it's twofold. And I think what you have to do is, in my profession, which I work in HR, I've always found that bringing people from both sides of the table together and understanding their concerns on one side and concerns on the other side is really the best way to be able to come to a feasible solution that's comparable for both people. And so what we need to do is, if there's business leaders or certain parts of business that have challenges with our permitting process or Excella, and then the city thinks that we're doing a great job, is let's bring those leaders together. Let's talk about what those challenges are. Let's identify solutions, see what's actually feasible, and then put together an action plan to be able to accomplish that. And I think as a city council member, we have a unique opportunity to do that, because we do build relationships with our department heads. And so my experience on the budget advisor as the budget advisory chair has given me an opportunity to build relationships with people like Mike Chuckran and contracts administration to understand, how do we go ahead and move this process forward in a way that works for everybody?
Great. Switching gears a little bit, I want to talk about home rule. We hear from local governments across the state that there's a Tallahassee knows best mentality coming from the capital. Do you agree with that sentiment? If so, how would you work to establish a more productive relationship with our state legislature?
I think we hear many, many times, and even when we saw the Constitution review that came through recently and the amendments to our state Constitution and Charter, there's a lot of preemption that's taking place from the state level. And I am running for a city council position because I know that I can make a difference in the lives of my neighbors, and the people that live farther down the street in a city council role, because I know the potholes that we have. I know the transportation issues that we have. I've lived in different parts of the city, and I've gone around to many different parts to understand what are the challenges that they have, which is why I'm running in a citywide position. It's ultimately important to be able to build those relationships with our state legislatures to understand what is it that they need to preempt for whatever reason it may be. Maybe it's safety reasons, maybe it's consistency reasons. We live in a city where we do things really, really well, but there's some cities that don't operate as well and as efficiently as the city of Tampa. And so that's probably been more of the catalyst on some of those decisions. If we can develop a relationship with those state legislators to make sure that we can have a seat at the table and talk about what's necessary and what's not, I think we can take a little bit more home rule and make sure that we're taking care of our residents today and tomorrow.
Great. P3s, public-private partnerships, they continue to be an asset for local governments across the country. What opportunities for P3s do you see in the city of Tampa as it relates to economic development opportunities?
Yeah, well, I think most recently the biggest P3 we heard about was the Tampa Bay race. And I think city council almost saw the word raise as a scarlet letter every time you went into the chambers. I would be in there, and I know when I did our presentation about the budget last year, we talked about the challenges coming up and what we needed to focus on. And we talked briefly about the raise, but it was briefly because it was a scarlet letter while we were in there. And so, making a comment about that, we need to make sure that city council has a seat at the table. We need to be more involved in those decisions, because it didn't feel like they were driving that conversation. It felt like it was being driven by county commission. So we need a more collaborative relationship with our intergovernmental agencies to make sure that these P3s are going the way that they need to. I also think that we need to focus on organizations like the Economic Development Commission, the Chamber. We need to focus on these other opportunities where we can come together and make sure that we're addressing the needs of the community. One of the things that I'm focused on is strengthening and empowering our neighborhoods. Nobody in the city knows better what they need in their neighborhood than the residents at the grassroots level and the businesses at the grassroots level. And so if we can give them a bigger voice and make sure that they have an understanding of what's going on and that they can communicate that to city council, we can do a better job of creating these public-private partnerships. And I think with Brightline coming, that's going to be another example of how we can create that with a center hub that'll interconnect the city and help everybody.
Perfect, and nice segue. I want to stick on transportation for a second. So obviously, a chamber-supported transportation referendum passed in November, and we've got a new revenue stream of transportation dollars. But I want to ask you, what would be the one priority project as it relates to transportation that you would like to see accomplished as soon as possible?
Yeah, I applaud the chamber for taking the opportunity to be proactive about their support of the offer transportation tax. I think many potential candidates and people who are elected office shied away from doing that. And I was a very vocal supporter of that referendum because I knew that for many years our transportation needs have been ignored because of the inactivity due to our legislature. And so I want to make sure that we go ahead and spend that money wisely and effectively. I think one of the best places that we can do it right now is making sure that we start repaving and getting our roads back up to condition. Our city has replaced our roads at 2% a year. They deteriorate at 3% a year. It doesn't matter if you're south of Gandy. It doesn't matter if you're in Hyde Park. It doesn't matter if you're in Seminole Heights or if you're in Forest Hills. Your roads are falling apart. In East Tampa, it's just as bad. So I think the first thing that we can do to make a very immediate impact is go ahead and make sure that we're taking care of those roads and making it safer for our residents to drive. The second thing that I would address is making sure that we're finding ways to get more public transportation. The expansion and modernization of the streetcar, I think, is a great idea, but we need to go beyond that because we need to create an interconnected hub that really connects all the different parts of the city, whether it's West Shore, downtown, the airport, or the University of South Florida, which is very important.
Great. So it sounds like that first priority would be making sure that any backlog, maintenance issues, paving, potholes, that would be addressed first.
I say we take care of the low-hanging fruit first, and let's figure out a comprehensive plan to address the other solutions as quickly as possible.
Leadership. What do you see as the role of city council, and if elected, how do you see that role evolving over your term?
Yeah. The city of Tampa is probably one of the strongest mayoral forms of government in the state. I would say it's probably in the top 2 or 3. And so you look at St. Pete, where they have a very strong city council form of government. And so what we need to do is make sure that city council acts as the checks and balances to whoever is elected as mayor. It's vitally important that people understand within the first 90 days of the administration, whoever is our new mayor is going to have to send a new budget to our city council members. We're going to need somebody who understands how to ask the questions about the budget, how to prioritize in there, and send that budget back if it's not what we need to address the needs of our community now and in the future. I am that candidate because of my experience on the Budget Advisory Committee, because I know our budget now and for the last 4 years. And that's going to be something that's very important. I do think it's important that our city council works in harmony with administration, but the city council is going to be there representing their districts and representing the city, and the administration is going to be representing what they want to move forward. It's one person, and I think that they can work together with 7 or against 7, but I think that it's a checks and balances, and city council needs to move their political will when they need to and not be afraid to make the right decisions for our residents.
Great. We've touched on several important policy issues. Is there an area that is a priority for you that we didn't touch on, or is there something that you would like to reemphasize for our members and the community watching these?
I think there is. There's 3 things that are core components of my platform. So the first is strengthening and empowering our neighborhoods. Strong neighborhoods and really great neighborhoods are going to improve economic development, and they're going to help our local businesses. They're going to drive down crime, and they're going to make sure that we get the essential city services that we need, whether it's potholes or streets or code enforcement. And we're going to make sure that the economic development and growth is there because of those strong and empowered communities. As the only candidate running for city council that is a neighborhood association president, I understand how to do that and have been through those challenges currently. The second one is making sure that we focus on infrastructure improvement. I know and you know that the offer transportation tax is going to really push us forward as it relates to transportation issues, but we can't forget about water and wastewater. Those $3 billion are technically sound, but we need to find a way to pay for those so they don't cost us more later on. We need to take care of that now. And then finally, I want to make sure that we do that through sound fiscal policy. I'm not saying sound fiscal policy is conservative policy or that we're not going to spend money or we're not going to raise taxes, because we are the checks and balances from the mayor as it comes to city council when it comes to our budget, but making sure that we're making the right decisions, making sure that we're auditing departments, positions, our healthcare, making sure we're going back and asking for new RFPs when necessary, because we need to make sure that we're using our money wisely and efficiently and finding ways for additional revenue streams. So we're not going back and always asking our businesses or our residents for more money. We need to be more transparent and figure out how to do that through sound fiscal policy. And I think that we can do that moving forward. And I look forward to moving Tampa forward with you guys.
Great. Well, thanks for that. And where can voters or the folks watching these go to learn more about your campaign?
Yeah, of course. If you'd like to learn more about my campaign, you can go to our website. It's www.lytle2019.com. That's LYTLE2019.com. We've also got Facebook social media where we update almost daily about what's going on. And I'm sure you're going to see me knocking on your doors if you're a voter. You're going to see a mailer come out or two, and you're going to make sure that you see me out there. I'm also going to be spending some time in each neighborhood as much as I can with what I'm calling coffee, community, and conversation. And we've identified different areas of the city where we're going to go out and make sure people can come and talk to me about the issues that they have and what the concerns are that they have in their neighborhoods or with their businesses, so that we can address those within the city. And I plan to do that once I become an elected city official as well. It's on a monthly basis, have at least these coffee, community, and conversations where there's accessibility to your elected officials to talk about your concerns.
Great. Well, on behalf of our 1,400 members, our board of directors, thanks for joining us, and thanks for your willingness to serve in an elected capacity.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. I hope you guys make the right decision come March 5th.
Have a great day.